There is a silent language spoken by the spaces we live in. Every corner, every object, every forgotten drawer holds more than just dust or decoration. It holds energy, memory, weight. Sometimes, without knowing, we are living inside a mirror of our own mind, cluttered, restless, or even quietly burdened. Have you ever walked into a room and suddenly felt anxious, heavy, or drained, though everything seemed fine? That is not a coincidence. It's your spirit sensing something your eyes cannot see. In Buddhist thought, the outer world and the inner world are not separate. The home becomes a reflection of the mind, and the mind in turn absorbs the nature of the space it dwells in. This is why ancient teachings quietly urge us to live simply, intentionally, and to release that which no longer serves the soul. Today, we are not just tidying a home, we are gently peeling away layers of energy that may be silently keeping you stuck. These are not just physical things, but energetic signatures. Some hold sorrow, some hold attachment, others are echoes of past identities we've outgrown. What if the discomfort you've been feeling isn't coming from within you, but from around you? In this video, we will explore 5 things you must remove from your home immediately, not because they are bad, but because they no longer align with who you are becoming. This is not minimalism, this is a spiritual realignment, a practice of clearing in order to return to stillness. With each section, I invite you not just to observe, but to feel. Feel how certain things affect your breath, your peace, your energy, because in this quiet removal, there is a sacred return. So sit back, breathe softly. You are about to step into a space not just of knowledge, but of remembering. Let us begin. 1. The energy that lives in objects. In Buddhist thought, everything carries energy, not just people or places, but even the smallest objects that surround us. They may appear lifeless, but they hold the impressions of where they've been, how they were used, and what emotions were felt around them. There is no such thing as a truly neutral item. Everything you keep in your home either contributes to peace or quietly takes away from it. Sometimes, without realizing it, we surround ourselves with objects that hold tension, old energy, or emotional weight. They remain silent, but their presence is not passive. Think of a simple item, like a gift from someone you've had a painful connection with. Maybe it's just a small book or a framed photo tucked away on a shelf. You haven't looked at it in a while, but every time your eyes pass over it, there's a small flicker in your chest, a quiet tightening, not enough to notice, but enough to shift the energy. This is what we mean when we say objects carry energy. They store memory, they remember things even when you don't. The same can be said for the things you bought during a difficult time in your life, a chair from when you felt lost, a painting that once felt comforting during a breakup, or even a piece of clothing you no longer feel yourself in. These items once had meaning, but now they hold an echo, and it's that echo that begins to affect the space. Your home is not just a shelter for the body, it is a reflection of your inner journey. To begin clearing, start simply. Walk through a room with soft awareness and ask yourself, does this still carry peace for me? Or does it feel heavy, even in a subtle way? There is no need to judge the object. Simply recognize when it no longer belongs to your present path. The act of removing such things is not rejection, it is release, a quiet honoring of what once was, and a soft invitation for lighter energy to enter. 2. When things break, something shifts. There's something almost poetic about the moment an object breaks: a teacup chipped on the edge, a clock that no longer ticks, a chair with one uneven leg. These things remain in our homes, sometimes for months or years, tucked into corners or placed carefully so they don't draw too much attention. But in Buddhist thought, a broken object is more than just damaged, it's energetically changed. When something breaks, it loses the fullness of its form, the wholeness it once carried, and if we keep it long after its purpose has ended, it can quietly anchor stagnant energy in our space. You may tell yourself it's harmless, it's just a crack, or I might fix it one day. But day after day, it remains exactly as it is, broken, unresolved. And in a subtle way, it begins to reflect something inside us, the things we postpone healing, the moments we delay closure. There is a small vase that sat on a woman's shelf for years, its rim chipped after falling during an argument that left a lasting scar in her memory. She never used it again, but she never threw it away either. It became part of the background, and yet every time she dusted that shelf, her mind brushed against that moment. The object was not neutral, it was holding something. Broken items ask a quiet question: why are you still holding on? In Buddhist teachings, there is great respect for impermanence. Everything changes and everything eventually dissolves. When something breaks, it may be a gentle signal that its time with you has come to an end, not out of anger or waste, but out of deep acceptance. Letting go of broken things is not about being harsh or perfect. It's about honoring the flow of life. It's a small act of harmony, releasing what no longer works to make space for what does. So the next time you see something broken in your home, pause, breathe, and ask gently, is it time to let this go? 3. Clutter and the clouded mind. Clutter is not just about the things we see, it is also about the weight we feel. A room filled with scattered objects, tangled cords, or overflowing drawers may seem harmless, even familiar. But over time, this quiet buildup of excess begins to settle not only in our homes, but in our minds. In Buddhism, clarity is considered sacred. A clear mind is spacious, like an open sky. It is not empty in a cold way, it is empty in a peaceful way. And yet, when our physical space becomes overcrowded, the mind follows. Thoughts become less fluid. Emotions sit longer than they need to. Stillness becomes harder to find. Clutter speaks in a silent language. It tells the mind, there is more to do. It whispers that something is unfinished, disorganized, not yet at rest. Even when we stop noticing it, our nervous system continues to listen. It responds. And slowly, we begin to carry that noise inside. Buddhist teachings remind us to simplify, not just for beauty, but for presence. A cluttered space can pull your awareness outward, scattering your attention, but a clear space brings the awareness inward. It becomes a container for mindfulness, for ease, for breath. This does not mean your home must be bare. It simply means that every item has a place, and every place has a reason. When your surroundings are thoughtful, your mind softens. You feel more grounded, more aware of the now. Clutter often comes from holding on to things we don't truly need, but aren't ready to face. It is the physical residue of indecision, the pause between letting go and moving forward. And that's why clearing it isn't just cleaning, it's a quiet form of self liberation. When you gently remove what no longer aligns, you are not losing anything. You are returning to the quiet order that already lives within you. You are allowing space for your thoughts to breathe and for your spirit to settle. With less noise around you, you begin to hear more from within. This is how the home becomes a mirror, and how clarity of space opens the doorway to clarity of being. 4. The echoes of past pain. We all hold on to things from the past: a letter, a photo, a souvenir from a time that felt significant, even if it was painful. Often we tell ourselves we're keeping these things as reminders, as proof of what we've been through, or of who we used to be. But what we don't always realize is that these objects do more than sit quietly on a shelf. They echo, and what they echo is often unresolved. Buddhist teachings gently remind us that clinging to the past is one of the great causes of suffering, not because the past itself is wrong, but because it no longer exists. When we allow objects to anchor us in old wounds or identities, we keep ourselves tethered to a version of life that no longer needs to be lived. It is human to hold on, to revisit memories, to surround ourselves with things that once brought meaning, even if they were tied to pain. But healing cannot fully unfold in a space crowded with emotional residue. The energy of grief, heartbreak, regret, it lingers in what we choose to keep. This doesn't mean you must erase your history. It means you must ask, am I honoring my growth, or am I preserving my wounds? Some people say they've moved on, but their homes still speak the language of suffering, with items tucked away that quietly reopen old feelings every time they're seen. This isn't wrong, it's just unexamined, and now is the time to notice. The truth is, pain can become familiar, and sometimes we carry it not because we need to, but because we've forgotten how to live without it. Releasing these objects is not a rejection of your story, it is an offering to your future self, the one who no longer needs to carry the same sorrow. So go slowly. Light a candle if you wish. Hold each item in your hands, breathe, and ask, is this helping me grow or gently holding me back? To remove what echoes pain is not to forget, it is to wake up, to choose presence over memory, and to finally give your heart the space it needs to open again. 5. Attachments, disguised as belongings. Not everything we keep is kept out of love. Often we hold on because we are afraid to let go, afraid of change, afraid of emptiness, afraid of who we might be without the things we've used to define ourselves. Buddhist wisdom speaks often of attachment, not as a moral failure, but as a natural tendency of the mind. We cling to people, to roles, to ideas, and yes, to things. Belongings that once held meaning slowly become symbols of identity. And without realizing it, we begin to confuse what I have with who I am. A shelf full of books that are never read, a closet filled with clothes that no longer fit our lives, trinkets that once sparked joy but now serve only as silent anchors to a self we've outgrown. These things do not cause harm on their own, but the attachment behind them quietly limits our freedom. It is not the object, it is the energy of holding. The teachings encourage us to observe, gently and without judgment, what am I holding on to and why? Sometimes the answer reveals a hidden belief that letting go is loss or that emptiness is a sign of lack. But in truth, letting go is the beginning of spaciousness. And spaciousness is where the spirit breathes most freely. There is no need to strip away all that is beautiful or useful. This is not about deprivation, it is about presence, awareness, a return to simplicity that allows your surroundings to support who you are now, not who you were before. If you feel resistance to parting with something, pause and listen inward. Is it love or is it fear? Is it joy or is it habit? When you begin to clear attachments, even in small ways, a quiet shift begins. You notice more, you feel lighter, you stop looking backward, and suddenly the space around you becomes more than a storage of things. It becomes a reflection of your freedom. Let your home reflect not what you've clung to, but what you've lovingly chosen to release. 6. The weight of excess. Too much of anything, even beautiful things, can begin to feel heavy. We often fill our homes with items we think we need, just in case for someday, or simply because there was space. Over time, these small additions create a sense of fullness that isn't nourishing. It becomes a quiet weight, not loud, not chaotic, just dense. And that density starts to echo through the mind. In Buddhist thought, simplicity is not a matter of style, it is a path toward inner clarity. It teaches that peace does not arise from abundance, but from balance. When our homes become filled beyond what we use or truly value, we unknowingly invite a kind of spiritual fatigue. Each object, no matter how still, carries attention. And the more we have, the more our energy becomes scattered, divided, restless. There is a kind of stillness that cannot be felt until space is made for it. Excess is not always materialism in the obvious sense. Sometimes it hides behind sentimentality or practicality or even generosity. But the truth remains, when we surround ourselves with more than what we need, it becomes harder to see what truly matters. Too many choices, dull clarity. Too many possessions, dull gratitude. Too many distractions, dull presence. This is not a call to minimalism for its own sake. It is a gentle reminder: the more we carry, the less we feel. The teachings invite us to consider the subtle difference between comfort and accumulation. Comfort supports you, accumulation clings to you. One nourishes, the other numbs. To release excess is not to live with less joy, it is to rediscover joy in what remains. In the open shelf, in the clear surface, in the breath that moves freely through a room no longer crowded. Begin with awareness, no rush. Ask yourself, what am I keeping out of habit? What adds no light to my space but quietly dims it? And then let go. Not all at once, but enough to feel the air shift, enough to notice your spirit lift. Because peace is not something you bring into a space, it is something revealed once the weight is gone. 7. What impermanence teaches the home. In Buddhist wisdom, impermanence is one of the deepest truths, the understanding that all things change, all things pass, and nothing stays the same. At first, this may seem like a somber teaching, but looked at closely, it is not sorrowful, it is liberating. When we forget this truth, we begin to treat our surroundings as if they are fixed. We place things in our home and never revisit them. We let objects grow roots even when they no longer serve a purpose. We hold on to things as if they will always have the same meaning they once did, but nothing holds the same meaning forever. The energy of your home, like your life, is always shifting. What once brought comfort may now bring heaviness. What once felt beautiful may now feel distant. This is not a problem, it is a natural unfolding. Impermanence teaches us to listen more deeply to the present, to not assume that what you needed yesterday is still needed today, to not fear change in your environment, but to welcome it as part of your own becoming. When we let our homes become frozen in time, filled with things from former seasons, past versions of ourselves, or outdated intentions, we invite a quiet resistance to flow. The space becomes heavy with memory instead of open to possibility. Instead, we are invited to move with time, to reflect, release, and rearrange as our inner world evolves. This is the spiritual art of renewal, not driven by aesthetics, but by awareness. It is the willingness to ask, does this still belong in the life I'm living now? And when the answer is no, we can let it go with softness, not out of rejection, but reverence, honoring its role in our journey and its release as a sign of growth. Impermanence teaches us not to fear loss, but to trust transformation. Your home, like your heart, is a living space. It breathes, it changes. Let it reflect your path, not your past. And in doing so, you allow peace to arise not from what you keep, but from what you've learned to let go. 8. Letting go as a quiet ritual. Letting go is not always loud. It does not need to be a dramatic clearing of shelves or a sudden wave of decisions. Sometimes the most powerful kind of release happens in stillness, with intention, presence, and gentleness. In Buddhist tradition, rituals are often simple: a single candle, a breath, a bow. What matters is not how grand the act is, but how conscious it is. And the same is true when it comes to releasing the things in our home. When we let go of an object, especially one tied to memory or identity, we are not simply throwing something away. We are acknowledging that its role has ended, that its purpose has been fulfilled. And in that moment, we're creating space not just in our home, but in our heart. Too often, we rush through this process. We bag up items quickly, trying not to feel too much, or we avoid it entirely, telling ourselves, I'll deal with it later. But true release asks for our attention, not to dwell in the past, but to witness it, to offer it a kind of closure. Try this. When you are ready to let go of something, pause, hold it in your hands, breathe, allow yourself to remember, to thank it if you wish, and then let it go with quiet clarity. Not because it is meaningless, but because it has served its meaning. This small shift turns a task into a ritual, and ritual by nature transforms the ordinary into the sacred. Letting go in this way becomes a practice, not a one time event, but a rhythm, like the seasons, always cycling, not out of chaos, but out of wisdom. The more you practice conscious release, the more you begin to feel the lightness that follows, not just around you, but within you. You begin to trust that emptiness is not something to fear, it is something to welcome. There is peace in a space that has been cleared with love. There is clarity in a life that is no longer weighed down by what no longer fits. And there is quiet power in letting go, not as an escape, but as a return. 9. The mind responds to space. Your surroundings are not separate from your thoughts. They are in quiet conversation, always. What we see, what we feel, what we pass by every day without noticing, it all leaves a subtle imprint on the mind. In Buddhist thought, awareness is not confined to meditation or sacred places. It is meant to flow through every part of daily life, and that includes the home. A cluttered table, a crowded shelf, or a narrow walkway might seem like small details, but the body responds. The breath shortens, the thoughts flicker, the nervous system becomes more alert, less open. We often don't realize it, but the mind listens carefully to space. It notices what feels calm and what feels unsettled. Even the most beautiful teachings become harder to embody when the space around us is filled with noise. And by noise, we don't mean sound, we mean the quiet pressure of too much. Too many objects, too many reminders, too many things asking for attention. It all creates a kind of mental static. But when a room is open, clean, and intentional, the mind begins to soften. Thoughts stretch out, breathing deepens. A still corner can become a sanctuary. A bare wall can be restful to the eyes. Even just one clear surface, a table with nothing on it but a small plant or a single candle, can feel like an exhale. This is not about making your home perfect. It's about making your space conscious, gentle, supportive of peace, because the mind mirrors what it moves through. When we wake up in a room that feels calm, we are more likely to carry that calm through the day. When we sit down in a space that is open, our thoughts are more likely to open too. So if the mind feels restless, it may not always be an inner problem. Sometimes it is simply responding faithfully, instinctively to its environment. Shift the space, and the inner world begins to shift with it, not with force, but with quiet permission. Because the mind, like the home, longs for room to rest, and when given that room, it remembers how to return to peace. 10. Creating stillness. Through intention. Stillness does not happen by chance. It is something we make room for, something we choose. And in the home, stillness begins with intention, not with how much we own, but with how we relate to what we keep. In Buddhist thought, intention is a quiet form of power. It's the energy that shapes our actions, the tone behind the way we live. When we bring intention into our space, the home itself begins to take on a different feeling. It stops being a collection of things and starts becoming a reflection of presence. Each object can become part of that stillness when it's chosen with awareness. A cushion placed for meditation, a cup used only when you want to slow down, a small item that reminds you to breathe. You don't need to redesign your life. You simply need to soften into it, piece by piece, moment by moment. When you clear what no longer serves and allow the space around you to breathe, something quiet shifts inside. The mind becomes less reactive. The heart feels less crowded. Stillness is not about silence or the absence of activity. It is about harmony, the kind that arises when everything in your space feels like it belongs, not because it is new or perfect, but because it is aligned with who you are now. This is what it means to live mindfully. Not in constant motion, but in deep relationship with what surrounds you. So begin to move through your home with awareness. Ask yourself gently, does this bring me into the present or pull me into the past? Does this nourish peace or simply fill space? Let your choices be small and sincere. Let your environment become your practice, a mirror for your inner life. Because when your space becomes intentional, so does your mind. And when your mind becomes intentional, you begin to live not just with less noise, but with more meaning. This is how stillness enters the home, not all at once, not loudly, but as a quiet rhythm, a soft return, a sacred yes to what truly matters now. Sometimes the clutter in our home is there because we're afraid of the silence that comes after it's gone. We fill space not just to decorate, but to distract from ourselves, from stillness, from truth. But stillness is not empty. It's where the real answers live. What have you been holding on to, and why? I'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, your small awakenings. Leave a comment below. I truly read them, and I'd be honored to connect with your journey.